everyone! I'm sure you're surprised to see me this early in the week. Well, this week we're celebrating a special festival. You guessed it right. We're celebrating Eid. And since we're celebrating this festival, I thought it would be wonderful to read a story that is based around this festival. So, without any further ado, let's get right to our story. So, the story we are reading today is Adil Ali's Shoes. Aadil Ali's Shoes. Story by Fawzia Gilani Williams. Pictures by Niloufer Wadia. Adil Ali ran a small shop in the busy market of a little town and lived in a small room above the shop. Everyone liked him because he was a kind person with a good heart. But there was one problem. Please look at the pictures very carefully as we read. Adil's shoes. They were old and worn and patched and sewn in so many places. They were not very nice to look at, but Adil loved them all the same. They are so comfortable, he would say, and they have been with me for years. But everyone else felt differently. How can anyone wear such old, scruffy looking shoes? They wondered. Someone needs to throw them away, said Saida, the samosa seller. Someone needs to bury those shoes, said Priya, the pakora seller. Even when Adil went to the mosque to pray, his shoes always ended up by themselves, no matter where he left them. No one would keep their shoes next to his. The festival of Eid was approaching. Adil's friends decided to buy him a special gift. So, on the day of Eid, they presented him with a pair of shiny brown shoes. Adil's eyes were filled with tears. He really didn't want to part with his old worn-out shoes. He would miss them very much, and this made him sad. Ah, said Priya, the pakora seller. Look, Adil Ali is crying. He is so happy. Adil wiped away his tears and thanked his friends. After his guests had finished their meal and left, Adil tried on the new shoes. They looked very nice. He turned his feet this way and that way, admiring them. Then he sighed. He had a problem. If I keep my old shoes, I'll want to wear them, he said, and my friends will be upset. What should he do? He thought and thought and thought. Ah, yes, he finally cried. I know. Adil picked up his old pair of shoes and hugged them tightly. Thank you for taking me on my journeys near and far, he said. I will miss you. He took a deep breath, walked over to a window, and with all his might flung his shoes into the river below. Splosh! Adil sighed and waved goodbye to his shoes as he watched them float away along the river. After a moment, he looked down at his feet and said, Now I'll have to wear my new shoes. The next day, when Joseph the fisherman pulled his net out of the water, he was very angry when he saw not only fish but also old, tatty, worn-out shoes tangled in his net. Adil's shoes. Joseph marched from his boat all the way to Adil's house and threw the shoes on the floor. Adil Ali, don't throw your shoes in the river, shouted Joseph. They have ruined my fishing net. Adil was surprised. My shoes? He said. You have come back to me. He went over to the other window, which faced the market, and placed his shoes on the ledge to dry. Suddenly, his cat jumped in onto the window ledge. Down the shoes fell. Down, down, down. Smack! They hit Sadia, the samosa seller, on the head and made her drop her samosas on the ground. I screamed Sadia. She looked around to see what had hit her and saw Adil's old, tatty, worn-out shoes. Throwing things on old women? She shouted and threw them back into Adil's open window. Sorry, called Adil. It happened by mistake. But Sadia didn't want to hear. She was so angry. Adil sighed. My shoes, he said, you have come back to me. He didn't know what to do. He lay awake at night, thinking and thinking. Suddenly, Adil jumped up. He had a wonderful idea. Early the next morning, Adil took his old shoes and climbed a very steep hill. When he got to the top, he leaned back and then, with all his might, threw his shoes as far as he could. There, he said, now I'll never see my shoes again. And with that, he walked back home. It just so happened at that moment, Adil threw his shoes. Shahid, the sugarcane seller, was riding to the market. The shoes fell onto the back of his cart right on top of his sugarcane. When Shahid stopped, he was horrified to see Adil's old, tatty, worn-out shoes. He immediately rode to Adil's house. Adil Ali, keep your scruffy old shoes off my sugarcane, shouted Shahid, and threw the shoes in front of Adil. Adil looked down at the ground. "My shoes," he said. "You have come back to me?" He scratched his head and again he wondered, "How can I get rid of my shoes?" So he thought and thought and thought. "Ah!" cried Adil. "I know." The next day, when he woke up early, ran through the empty bazaar and climbed up a big mulberry tree. He wedged his shoes into a cluster of branches and smiled. "Now, dear shoes," he said, "you can stay here forever and no one will ever bother you." Later that morning, the bazaar was busy. Fawzia was selling her spicy samosas. Joseph was selling his masala fish. Pintu was selling his hot and delicious rotis. Shahid was selling his sugarcane juice. Karam was taking cobs of corn out of the basket on his donkey. Priya was shouting out, "Buy tasty pakoras! Come and buy my pakoras!" Just then, a strong wind began to blow. It blew so hard that it threw Adil's shoes out of the mulberry tree onto Karam's donkey. "Ee-yaw, ee-yaw!" brayed the donkey, kicking up his legs. Karam's corn went flying everywhere and landed on Fawzia's samosas, Joseph's fish, and Priya's pakora and Pintu's roti. Everyone was furious. Karam held up the old, tatty, worn-out shoes. "Oh no!" shouted everyone. "Adil's shoes!" They all looked at each other in dismay and shook their heads. "This has to stop," they said. So off they marched to Adil's house. "Here are your shoes, Adil Ali. We think you should keep them on your feet." Adil smiled. "Yes," he said, "that's just where they belong." He put away his new shoes and put on his old, tatty, worn-out shoes. Then he took a walk through the city, and no one ever made fun of Adil Ali's shoes again. And that brings us to the end of our story. What a wonderful story. I think this story teaches us a lot of different things. But today, I would like to talk to you about two things that really stood out for me. The first thing that I want to talk to you about is how this book manages to capture the diversity of our country. Now, you must be wondering, what is this word diversity? What does it mean? Well, diversity is understanding that each individual is unique and different in his or her own way. And this difference could be cultural, religious, political, it could be age, it could also be race, it could be absolutely anything. I really love how Adil's friends, even though they clearly belong to different communities, come together to celebrate Eid with him. Not only that, they get him a very thoughtful gift. Well, it is another matter that Adil does not require this gift. Now, coming to the second thing that I want to talk to you about. The second thing I want to talk to you about is the beautiful illustrations or drawings in this book. This book is not only diverse in the storyline, it is also diverse in the pictures. I really enjoyed how different characters were portrayed differently. It could be Sadia, who is drawn with a headscarf around her head, or it could be Priya, who wears her hair in a long glossy plait. I love how this book really captures how diverse our country truly is. So, for today's activity, I thought we all could try and become artists. I thought it would be a great idea for us to try and capture the diversity of our country in a picture. I want you to think of one location in your city where you see the most amount of diversity. It could be a train station or a bus stop or even a marketplace. Once you have imagined the spot that you want to draw, I want you to try and capture the diversity as much as you can through your pictures. For inspiration, I would encourage you to go back through the pictures of this book and see how beautifully the artist has captured diversity. Take ideas and inspirations from her. But remember, do not copy. Create your own original artwork. Alright, for this activity, all you need is a paper and any pencils, crayons or sketch pens that are easily available to you. Over here, I have drawn my activity and kept it ready. Now, when you see my activity, I do not want any of you to try and copy it. This is my interpretation of what I think is the most diverse space in my locality. You think of yours and create your own original artwork. So, this is my picture that depicts diversity in my locality. I thought about where I see diversity and where I see it the most. And I remembered the cow gully that I used to visit before the lockdown. So in my picture, I have tried to show diversity through food. If you notice, I have put down names of different food items, and as some of you know, these different food items come to us from different parts of the country. For example, we have momos. They come to us from the northeast, or your favorite dosas and idlis. They come to us from the south of India. So, this is my picture that depicts diversity. I encourage you all to try and create your own original activity around diversity. I hope a lot of you try your hand at this activity. Remember, if you do this activity, click a picture and email it to me at sharonschool.library@gmail.com. I am awaiting your responses. Anyway, until next time, see you.